Well, what do we have here? Dragon Age and Taylor Swift on the very same day. Don't blame me, but I am literally living in my wildest dreams of Dragon Age Taylor's version. I have not stopped screaming all weekend, and so my voice is a little bit rustic, but folks, we're gonna get through this together because we have the most enchanting Dragon Age trailer ever. And there's so much to break down. Morrigan, Manfred, Double Blight, the Dread Wolf, and even a release date. By Andraste's glorious undergarments. It's been a long time coming, but there is nothing like this trailer. So without further ado, put on your tinfoil hats and let's dive into the ultimate frame-by-frame breakdown in all of Thedas. First of all, it's important to note that all footage in this trailer is actually running in real time in-engine. So what you see is what you're gonna get, and damn, does it look good. So the trailer picks up right after the extended gameplay feature that ended on a massive cliffhanger. Rook disrupts Solas's ritual to destroy the Veil, releasing our two antagonists, the evil elven gods Elganan and Gillinan, trapping Solas in the Fade and binding Solas and Rook together through Rook's blood, permanently connecting them to the Fade. In the trailer's opening cutscene, Rook awakens in the Fade with Solas, sexily voice acted by Gareth David Lloyd, as Solas explains that Rook has no idea what they've done. The blighted elven gods are free because of their interference. The gods seek to bring their peace and comfort to Thedas with their reign, as revealed in the Thedas Calls teaser last year. While Solas lives rent-free in our minds outside of the Fade, when in the Fade, we can actually see that Solas appears physically right before us. And I love this because it means we will have a kinesthetic approach, one-on-one, face-to-face, proper conversations with Solas, instead of just his pesky mind phone calls that we're going to get anyway. I'm really living for the hope of that Solas x Rook dynamic and how far it can go. Also, the Fade looks a lot greyer this time around compared to its usual green hues. I wonder if that's specific to this scene. Now, Rook's hub, the lighthouse, is also located in the Fade, and according to Game Informer, it changes depending on the world state and the character's emotions. Maybe the Fade's appearance now in the Veilguard is more ambiguous and colourful, depending on the given context. If that's the case, the Grey Void here might represent Solas's fears coming to life with the elven gods now free. Next, we see an Antivan city engulfed in flames, likely due to the Qunari invasion, as the Crows rally to defend their homeland against the Qun. This city could be Treviso, as hinted at in previous trailers, Antiva City, or really anywhere in the jewel that is Antiva. Take your pick. It's also quite possible that Antiva's destruction is caused by the two evil elven gods, as a particular Witch of the Wilds describes their arrival during this sequence. This could ring true considering Elganan is symbolized by fire, among other things like light, jealousy, retribution, and of course vengeance. And this Antiva City is, well, on fire. I know, masterful tinfoil work right here. However, his symbolism most certainly resembles qualities of a dragon, witnessed later in this trailer. So perhaps this could actually be Elganan's handiwork in dragon form. Antiva's destruction could even be a mix of the elven gods and the Qunari together. Maybe the Qun decided to work with the elven gods, considering their invasion has been upstarted unofficially and not by the Qun's governing army, the Antam. Perhaps those actually leading the Qunari invasion, like Rasan from the comics, sought the elven gods, striking some kind of deal that would most likely not follow through in the slightest on either side. Additionally, we catch a glimpse of the evil elven goddess Gillinan actually in Antiva, perched on a rooftop with the sigil of the Antivan crows. Her grotesque, fleshy tendrils are visible as the camera pans up, cutting away just as we see her gruesome hand. She looks absolutely terrifying. Definitely not one I'd want to romance. Sorry folks, even for me, I have my limits. Just to keep you up to speed, Gillinan is known as the Mother, the goddess of guides and navigation in elven lore. She created giants, monsters and beasts in her time, and we get a sense of her true monstrous crafty work when looking at her mutilated appearance, as well as her work involving darkspawn, grey wardens and a viscous grey fluid in Tevinter Nights. More on her appearance later on, but she's giving Lovecraftian dark fantasy. Next we get a striking, sexy shot of Rook and Lucanus in a dark, snowy fortress. There's a flag in the background that looks to me like the Qunari logo, so this could be a Qunari-occupied fortress or possibly a Qunari-led location, like Saharan or Parvolan. Next, Rook, Balara, Nev and Harding come across a horrifying red lyrium scene. The fact that all three of them are present, despite only being able to have 2 companions at a time, suggests this might be Balara's recruitment mission, the first mission after acquiring the lighthouse, or a loyalty or specific special mission that absolutely requires Balara, allowing for 3 companions in some cases, which has actually been confirmed. Now, if this is actually Balara's recruitment mission, the location would be within the Arlefan forest, though I'm not entirely convinced. Regardless, the bloated red lyrium cocoon tendril thing surrounding some poor fellow was teased during EA Play 2020. At the time, there were many hints at what this could be, from a red lyrium titan's heart to a physical representation of the red lyrium idol to the origin of the Blight, or a cocoon storing something or someone. And now we see it more clearly. It appears to be an elf wrapped up in tendrils with a distinct hairstyle, dreadlocks with a shaved trim. Quite elegant for Thedas, which kind of makes me think it could be something ancient elven. Maybe this could be somebody like Felisan or an ancient elf, or maybe even one of the elven gods, maybe like one of their physical forms or something like that. That is quite a stretch though. I think generally it's probably just someone being tortured and tormented by red lyrium, meant to showcase the blight and the evolving effects of red lyrium in this world since its introduction in Dragon Age 2, establishing just how maddening it's got since. Now throughout this entire sequence, what do we have here if it isn't the sweet, familiar voice of Claudia Black returning as Morrigan? Our beloved Witch of the Wilds is back, introducing the Elven Gods plotline as she presumably warns Rook that they're battling gods who won't rest until the Veilguard are brought to their knees, fearful, cowering, and helpless in the face of their power. This likely refers to the Blight and whatever tricks the Elven Gods have up their sleeves, since they were the most powerful elite mages of their time in an era of miraculous magic and immortality. As Morrigan delivers the helpless line, we see an ambiguous battle scene in a red lyrium blighted snowy area, similar to the one with the person trapped in that bloated red lyrium cocoon, which is what I'm going to be calling it. There's also a dragon on the right, with Gillinan at the centre of the battleground as Elganan is seen casting a spell in the midst of it. Now, upon further inspection, Gillinan is actually impaled with some kind of spear from a ballista, which, spoilers for the end of this trailer, but there's a red lyrium dragon actually at this scene that also has a spear impaled in its chest, which to me confirms that this dragon is actually Gillinan in the end. So, double blight, here we go. As the Veilguard and what appears to be warden allies, judging their armour and shields, as they attack Gillinan, Elganan casts a spell to help her, essentially yeeting the wardens away. It's definitely not a fair fight, but it highlights how impactful factions may be as they join our battle against the gods. And in this case, maybe not so helpful. Do remember this battleground because we're going to return to it later on, but I think this is actually endgame material right here, folks. Next, we return to the ritual site before Rook disrupted Solas' scheme, and we hear new dialogue from Varric. Varric essentially rallies up Rook, stating they've got this. He's seen their work. He thinks Rook is clever, adaptable, and doesn't know when to quit. This sounds like a pep talk, possibly to encourage Rook to become the leader of the Veilguard, to pass on the torch. This suggests that Varric isn't going to die during the ritual scene and is going to live for a little bit longer. At least that's my hope. And true to the franchise's name, next we see a massive dragon breathing fire. It lands, intimidating Rook and the group. In the background, we notice clusters of red lyrium sacks and a huge mass of the stuff near a cave entrance, which we've seen in previous development clips. Now it seems this dragon appears after Rook has dealt with the elf encased in the red lyrium cocoon, as it seems like it's the same area as if emerging from a cave. Also, what they feared happened to Harding. We can can see that she has a bruised face. Who hurt her? I reckon this will link to how she gets her powers, but we'll hold on that thought for the moment. Next, we get a stunning shot of Tevinter's capital city, Minrathous. Despite the fires on the side, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I imagine it's even more beautiful when demons aren't falling from the sky and Veilguard cultists are in the streets, as well as two evil elven gods causing chaos. Capture this beauty because the ending of this trailer is bringing an eclipse to the center of this city. After Rook reluctantly teams up with Solas to stop the elven gods, they wake up alongside Harding and Nev in the Dread Wolf's lair, a magical realm called the Lighthouse, which now serves as our new player hub. I'm fairly certain this next scene is set in the Lighthouse because everybody is in their PJs, unless of course this is some kind of mission-based slumber party. Nev, who looks absolutely stunning, sets the plot in motion by suggesting that the group need allies to go after the gods, and she knows where to find them. And as this sequence unfolds, Rook, Harding and Nev return to the ritual site in the Arlafan forest to chase leads using Solas's own Alluvion. This kicks off Balara's recruitment mission as they search for her in the forest. But immediately I noticed that Harding's face is already bruised as she exits the Alluvion, so she must get these bruises pretty early, right? Perhaps maybe during the ritual itself? But then who hurt her? And could this be why she now has magical powers? Maybe Elganan zapped her with magic, reconnecting her to a titan or ancient magics? Maybe? Rook then steers the conversation, asking where the team should start. And the first location in this trailer is the Anderfels, specifically Fortress Weishaupt, the Grey Warden's headquarters. It looks absolutely stunning, especially with those griffin Quidditch hoops. Maybe Asan, Davrin's griffin pet, will get to take a few laps around them. While the beauty of this scene is striking, even for the Anderfels, I have a feeling that trouble is brewing for the headquarters of the Wardens. And my suspicion comes from the Thedas Calls teaser, where lightning struck across the fortress, blight sacks were visible, and a senior warden was heard shouting that the Order doesn't hide in their castle and would never ask good soldiers to turn tail and run. Something bad is brooding. But back to the serene beauty, we see Davrin, our warden companion, alongside his griffin pet, Asan. As someone, likely Rook, exclaims that they would be damned upon seeing a griffin. The voice sounds slightly different from what we've heard so far, but I need more of Alex Jordan's Rook in my ears to make a really good judgment. In the next scene, Davrin is seen cleaving the head off a Darkspawn, with Rook and a child behind him and Darkspawn chasing the group. The child could be related to Davrin. Truth be told, we know the least about Davrin as a companion, so it could literally be anyone. We hear Davrin shout the Warden's motto in War Victory, which makes me feel like this location is still Weishaupt, hinting at that lingering danger I mentioned earlier, considering they are running from a horde of Darkspawn. I thought the senior warden said that the Order doesn't just turn tail and run. Perhaps they've got no choice now? And we also see Asan making a meal out of an undead. That's a good boy. Next, we quickly get an environmental shot of a ruined elven location, similar in nature to the Shattered Library from the Trespasser DLC. It's clearly elven, as evidenced by a statue of Gulanan hidden to the left. The area has a strange underwater tinge to it, and it looks like there might be a fish in the bottom left corner. So underwater exploration potentially confirmed, like that Lord of Fortune concept art that was teased back in 2020. Then flying into the rescue, Lucanus uses his, what I'm going to call demon magic, which has ominous intent, to brutally and beautifully take down a group of Venatori. It's clearly his favourite pastime. He announced that he is ready, and we get an amazing action shot of his demon wings. And next we're in the Arlafan forest, or another hugely significant elven area. As described by Game Informer, one of the first missions involves finding an elven relic to break a veil bubble that the team is trapped in. The area is filled with floating rocks and cursed magic, which fits this entire scene perfectly. We then see Balara examining a relic she's never seen before and using her electricity magic to activate it. Fixing broken things is her shtick. And what's the harm in powering ancient artifacts that you barely understand anyway? After a lot of elven content in this trailer, we move on to a dwarven location set in the snowy mountains. Check out that door. That's a finely dwarven crafted door, that. We've also seen earlier development shots of this area. As for where it could be, it's clearly somewhere high up. Maybe near the Anderfels, dare I say a mountain surface level of Calcia rock. Just wishfully thinking though. The next location builds on the previous one, featuring a minecart track with clusters of lyrium. Since only dwarves can mine lyrium, this is likely a lyrium mining site. I am curious why Rook would visit such a place though. Perhaps each of these locations are connected to Harding and her recent surge of magical powers. We see Darkspawn chasing after Rook and Harding, who freezes them in their tracks. Harding, still bruised at this point, pleads with Rook, confused about what is happening to her. And it's a good question. Perhaps Stolas' ritual awakened one of the Titans, which then connected with Harding. If the breach in the Descent DLC in Inquisition could wake a Titan, then tearing part of the veil most likely can do the same, surely. The question is, will this be the case for all dwarves, or is it just Harding? Perhaps this will be answered in her questline. Next up, we dive into one of the spookiest places in Thedas, perfectly suited for the game's Halloween release date, the Grand Necropolis. This massive crypt for Navara's elite is impressive in scale, especially with the enormous skeleton lurking inside. More on that one in a moment. We see Emric, our charming Morn Watcher necromancer, entering the crypt in his finely trimmed robes. Flanking each door are two figures, a hooded masculine figure on the right and a feminine figure holding what looks to be like an urn. This actually could be Myrna from Tevinter Nights. She's a fellow Morn Watcher who works alongside Emric. Emric carries a glowing green lantern, likely a warding spell, and shouts, "Let the Fade draw close," as he faces the largest skeleton ever. Now, remember when BioWare said we couldn't romance Manfred, but joked about romancing another skeleton? Which, yes, most likely is a joke to Emric. Could BioWare really mean this one? Enemies to Lover's Arc, anyone? Next, we see a location covered in red lyrium sacks and Andraste statues. It might be the same red lyrium blighted area we saw earlier, though I'm not entirely sure. I get the feeling this could be the Underfells, considering the Andraste statues, which are significantly tied to the Underfells, especially on the map of Thedas. And Tash is clearly shown in Engine here, presumably with the Lords of Fortune as they hunt a dragon. So maybe this actually could be Ravane, as the Lords of Fortune have lost their homeland due to dragons invading their lands. This could be one of their attempts to reclaim their territory. Though Ravane doesn't follow the Chant of Light, so why would you have Andraste statues there? Either way, dragon hunting with Tash, I'm so down. Next, we're in Docktown, where Nev spends much of her time in Minrathous. We get an intimate look at the romance between Nev and Rook, as she expresses that their relationship might be what scares her. I'm excited that this cutscene takes place in Nev's own home rather than the lighthouse. It adds a vibrant touch, allowing us to experience more of these characters in their own environments. I love this sense of agency. Alright, real talk now folks. A raven flies through an elven ruin with a statue of Gillinan nearby. Possibly this could be her temple. The raven transforms into Morrigan, who we've already heard throughout this trailer. Here, however, we see her new look, which merges elements of her origins appearance with now a more sinister twist. She ain't wearing her 10-year-old Orlesian ballroom dress anymore. No, Morrigan is now wearing Mathal's headpiece, sparking so many theories. At the end of Inquisition, Mathal placed a piece of herself into an Illuvian so she could live on after transferring her power to Solas, or at least aspects of her power, essentially allowing her to body swap. Just a piece, a small piece, but that's all she needed. Throughout the series, Flemeth, who carried Mathal, intended to use Morrigan as her next vessel, but Morrigan was never willing. Until now, depending on your specific world state. A soul cannot be forced upon the unwilling and all that. Now, if Morrigan had a child with an old god soul, she might now be willing to become the vessel for Mathal to save her own son's life. However, if she didn't have a child, the possibility of her being the next vessel is less clear. Now, it makes sense if Morrigan drank from the Well of Sorrows and therefore became the next vessel, considering she sought its power without knowing its full implications and still willingly drank from it. Whatever the case, 10 years after the events of Inquisition, Morrigan is now seen wearing Mathal's headpiece. This suggests that she may have accepted Mathal's influence, regardless of your world state. In the end, Morrigan Morrigan is said to be the inheritor of the next age. She is forecast to be there at the Dragon Age's conclusion. Very similar to Mafal, who was there at the very start of the Dragon Age, and is potentially the game's namesake. Regardless, it is so good to see Morrigan coming back, and I cannot wait to dive into the intrigue surrounding her narrative and if she now carries Mafal and what that means, as well as her dynamic with Solas and everything else. Hopefully this time she doesn't elf-splain to an elven rook though. In this sequence, Morrigan approaches this temple and shares that this is the time in which legends are born or slain, setting up Rook's own hero's journey. Will we become a legend, or will we die hard in the process? We then see Morrigan next to Emmerich as she casts a powerful purple spell vehemently. I really hope that Morrigan does join us as an additional NPC in critical missions. Now, remember the battleground we saw earlier with the Grey Wardens helping the Veilguard that I did tell you to remember? Well, now we get to see some striking Antivan Crows from Tevinter Knights joining the fight, once more showcasing the role factions will have in this game and gaining their allegiance for what seems to be the final battle, or one of the final battles. Andraste, Cantori and Viago de River are seen taking on Venatori, who I think are aiding the elven gods now. One twisted Tevinter god wasn't enough for this cult. Now they've gone with two elven gods. Predictable. I think this location is likely in Tevinter, as indicated by the architecture of one of its fortresses. Very angular, very Tevin. It might just be the fort though, hard to say for sure. In what also appears to be another Tevinter location, judging again by the architecture, Lucanus is battling a blood mage. I think this is straight up Zara Renata, a Venatori Malefica and Magister of the Imperium, who seeks revenge against Lucanus Della Morte, as mentioned in Tevinter Knights. This grudge stems from the fact that Lucanus killed over 40 Venatori, prompting Zara and her Venatori agents to go after him. Big up these Tevinter Knights connections and full circle story moments. And here, the moment that made it for me. No joke. Yes, the Morrigan reveal was class, but we see Manfred with Rook in engine and he looks so cute. I want to be his bestie. Please be my friend, Manfred. He even stores things in his flipping ribcage. Emmerich follows from behind as a Morn Watcher runs out of the door. The camera then flips to see our big skelly, a bunch of folk, maybe necromancers, seem trapped by this demon as it manipulates a spell. Honestly, Big Skelly looks like a terrifying threat. I'm really glad to see foes on this scale in a Dragon Age game. Maybe these folk could actually be necromancers aiding Big Skelly. That is a new thought I've just had right there. There's also a man on Big Skelly's shoulder, which is interesting. I assume Skelly was a cagey, upset demon, but maybe Big Skelly is just under the influence of some evil rival necromancer. Maybe there's some drama among the dead men. Am I right, Tevinter Knights fans? Get it? Next, we see a distressed Balara screaming about the return of the elven gods, referring to them as ours, in a conversation with somebody who I assume would be elven. She questions how they, which I assume the Veilguard, can possibly stand against such powerful beings. This scene then shifts to what I've been calling the endgame battle, where we get a closer look at one of the dragons. This lyrium-infused, blighted creature is grotesque, with tendrils hanging from its neck, just like Gillanan. Next, we see Nev in a magical standoff with a powerful Venatori blood mage, as evidenced by his intense red eyes, as well as the fact that Nev is a sworn rival of the Venatori, who literally kidnap her in the first 5 minutes of this game opening up. It's a battle of blood versus ice, and the shot changes to reveal a new look for Nev without her fascinator, and she is simply stunning. Next, we see Davran, Lucanus and Rook inside Fortress Weishaupt, with a few Grey Wardens in the background. Rook says, "I believe in all of us, so let's get it done," setting the stage for the finale as they throw a sword onto a table. Perhaps this indicates they have killed an evil foe, a particular target, or maybe somebody significant who owned the sword has died, and they're reporting back to the Wardens about it. An explosion hits Rook and possibly Lucanus, as Rook charges determinedly towards what appears to be Gillanan lying on the ground in this endgame-like battleground. Is this this a final attempt to defeat Gillinan? Somehow? Was this explosion one way to at least wound her, and now Rook can go in for the kill? We really get a sense of her scale as she lies there on the floor. She is a spot-on replication of the original Archdemon concept art design, which just further bolsters the case that the elven gods are the Tevinter old gods. And if we look really close, we can see Rook's dagger is impaled in her chest. Perhaps this is one way to actually kill the elven gods, the blade that can end the war. I feel like this scene is depicting the end of Gillinan's physical form before she then body swaps into a new vessel, like Corypheus or Mafal or the archdemons. Maybe this is where Rook will think they've succeeded in killing her, and she then turns into one of the evil dragons showcased in this trailer, like Psyche. More on that blighted immortality thing in a minute though, because here is where things get faded. Manrafus is engulfed in Blight, with a red sky like an eclipse and a massive dragon, perhaps the largest we've ever seen, looming over a head. Its headpiece is very unique. It looks like it could belong to an elven god on the Pantheon, now in dragon form. Maybe perhaps after the heroes think they have defeated the elven gods, they just mesh into this thing. But just like the ancient prophecy, as two shadow spheres create an eclipse that falls over the city of Manrafus, the Dread Wolf rises. We see a physical canine beast leap as huge red lyrium tendrils grow. The Dread Wolf goes to bite this dragon's neck. This wolf could represent many things. It could be Solas, free from the Fade, using Mafal's power that he got on Inquisition, now as a draconic canine physical representation of pride, as teased in callback from Tevinter Nights. It could also be the pride demon that took the shape of the Dread Wolf, also in Tevinter Nights. It could be, in this scenario, that the Veil has been destroyed, hence the state of Manrafus. Look at it. And the Elven Empire that was once sundered is now whole, physically and spiritually, connecting Solas with his Dread Wolf form once more, if this theory is to be believed. You see, to explain it a bit further, when Solas created the Veil, he sundered the worlds and the elven people, splitting reality itself. He split the elves' spirits into many different parts. Even Solas himself said that the Veil took everything from the elves, even themselves. With that in mind, given that Solas split the Evanuris, did he also sunder himself? If so, was the Dread Wolf split as a separate entity from Solas when he created the Veil? If the Veil hasn't been destroyed, is this Solas's sundered Dread Wolf aspect? If the Veil has been destroyed, could this now be the result of Solas merging with his former self? Maybe depending on Rook's relationship with Solas, either good or bad, Solas will rise as the Dread Wolf. Perhaps equal reason for both. Join Rook to help fight as DW, or rival the gods and then rival Rook and the Veilguard as the DW. Or maybe this is truly the evilest, twisted version of Solas, who is so desperate to restore the Elven Empire and defeat the gods by any means, even if it means becoming something he'd not have his loved ones see, as he told Llewellyn. Solas's fresco from the Game Awards 2020 trailer provided crucial insights into Solas's imprisonment in the Fade, actually teasing the plot all along. It depicted the Dread Wolf emerging from the Black City, infused with red lyrium. The fresco suggested that the gods would actually elude Solas, fleeing from the Fade, as the Dread Wolf was observed within the Black City, situated in the Fade. The Dread Wolf's teeth and bright blue eyes symbolize red and regular lyrium in an attempt to be set free and destroy the Veil, becoming blighted in the process. Is this one of Solas's fates showcased now with the Dread Wolf battling it out in Manrafus? Now I could go on and on and on and on, and I will in future videos about this. Either way, we have the Dread Wolf physically in the Veilguard, and that is the one thing I've always wanted. I'm howling to see this. I cannot wait. Solas is set up to have a variety of conclusions in this game, and to say that this is one of them is beyond epic. One question though, can Llewellyn ride the Dread Wolf into battle? That would be a sight to see. Next up, we get a brief shot of Irilyn, a Dalish shapeshifting mage and veil jumper introduced in Tevinter Nights. She'll be working with Strife, also a veil jumper, and we're going to meet the pair when recruiting Balara in the Arlathan Forest. In this scene, we can see Irilyn frantically casting magic with floating triangles, symbolized within the veil jumper faction. We then see another Veiljumper battling a demon-possessed sentinel in the Arlafan forest. Part of the same mission, I presume. The Veiljumper has a tattoo on their arm, likely related to the Veiljumper faction, similar to the origin of Balara's tattoos. Next we see our brand new apostate Harding casting a powerful ice wall spell, highlighting her growth already. We get a scene with a redesigned Darkspawn Ogre as Rook strikes down a Pride Demon using a Veiljumper shield, showcasing that faction's specific drip. And now we have the final sequence of this trailer. This battleground returns, now featuring two dragons, one of red lyrium and one of regular lyrium. Elganan and Gillinan in blighted dragon form, perhaps becoming the shape reserved for the gods as mentioned in elven legends, or maybe that's the other bigger dragon? Maybe a part of themselves that was made to forget or was sundered? Ultimately, I think this scene is either in the middle or towards the end, and it represents a double blight. Now the elven gods are Tevinter's old gods and don't need an archdemon to rise to cause the blight because they've already arose blighted, and the Darkspawn already heed their call because they're the old gods and probably created the blight in the first place. However, for some reason they've chosen to enter this dragon form. I think this is their separate form once we defeat their physical form, as I mentioned before, like Corypheus or Mafal, where when their physical form died, they found a new body to replace it, thanks to the powers of blighted magic, which of course these two elven gods harness. I think that's how the elven gods are effectively immortal, as Solas described. They probably created the blight, and perhaps the blight is their reasoning for being effectively immortal, because this all ties back to the blight, its origin. And then you got Mafal in the midst too, as she's still lingering around and also has a huge relevance to the blight as she speaks the calling and is gathering old god souls from archdemons. So, hypothetically, putting that into context, let's say the Veilguard kill Elganan and Gillinan's physical forms, and the two of them then just leap into these blighted dragons' bodies. Perhaps there's a bit more of a plan to this blighted dragon form too. Regarding the Shadowed Sphere's prophecy, and now these two tainted old gods as dragons, what if they're going to create an eclipse to fully blight this world? Because at the end we have this huge dragon to contend with. If Elganan and Gillinan are the two lyrium dragons, unless they actually both become one massive dragon, two Shadowed Spheres becoming whole, like an eclipse. And then Fen'Harel enters the scene as the Dread Wolf because of their transformation. With that in mind, maybe the two elven gods do actually destroy the Veil, unleashing horrors onto this world, allowing them to reconnect with powerful magics that Solas sundered when he created the Veil, which would in turn allow Solas to unleash his former full potential too. Hence the Dread Wolf. And we are still the Veilguard after all, despite Solas' scheme. That's at least the best interpretation I have of this so far. Or maybe the huge dragon is Morrigan transformed as Mafal, which I think is Dragon Age 5 plot material, but it certainly could make sense, given that Mafal still seeks her reckoning that could shake the very heavens, and we know whoever drank from the Well of Sorrows can transform into a dragon, or have a dragon pet if you're the Inquisitor. If Morrigan now does carry the vessel of Mafal, could this actually be her? Could this be her reckoning upon the very heavens? Because I don't think that is something that Solas would actually want either, as it goes against his plan. Surely there's some kind of plot twist. I'm so far leaning more towards Elganan and Gillinan merging together from this red lyrium, blue lyrium dragon, this Shadowed Sphere's prophecy to create an eclipse, and then coming together like Power Rangers to become this massive dragon in some kind of unsundered move to become whole. Perhaps established by a double blight, or the result is a double blight, or that's how they blight the world, or something like that. I'm just speculating at this point like a madman. Either way, we don't have long to wait, folks, because Halloween is the release date for the Veilguard. Thursday, the 31st of October, Dragon Age Taylor's version comes out, and you can pre-order it right now. I am literally howling like a dread wolf. We do not have long at all. So long story short, everything has changed with this trailer. I can see the end game slightly coming together, tying up like a bow with Morrigan's role. Each faction's presence, especially towards the end game, a double Blight, the Venatori, the Cunari, blighted Manfred, an Eclipse, ominous red lyrium tendrilled cocoons, the elven gods, and of course the dread wolf rising. We're literally getting the very thing that we've been thinking about since 2018. Let me know all of your thoughts down below, and thank you for being patient with me for this one, as I literally spent this entire weekend seeing Taylor Swift twice and writing this in between the two shows. Huge shout out to my boy Tom for recording my reaction at the start as well. Also, if any of you noticed any Taylor Swift songs throughout this video, you are a real one. Let me know in the comments down below. But of course, for the latest on Dragon Age, the Veilguard, you are in the right place. I have been Jackdaw, and I should go.